Because if there's anything we need more of, it's buddy reads. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about some buddy reads that I have been looking forward to announcing. Funnily enough, I actually changed what they were going to be shortly before this because something else that I was reading made me, in fact, then want to read a different series. So we're going to talk about those, and then as well as we're going to take a look at the huge collection of classics I have, almost all of which I have not read, and I'd really like to. So one of my patrons suggested doing like a quarterly buddy read for classics as well. So we'll be doing that in addition to the other kind of series buddy reads. It'll just be one per quarter. Most of them aren't that long, so I think it'll probably be fine without too much overlap. So we'll look through it, all the different options, and then what I want you to do is let me know in the comments which ones you recommend. You don't even have to just choose one. You can technically pick however many. What I'm going to do is all the ones that people specifically vote for, I'm going to tally those up, and I'm going to grab the top ones, and then I'm going to put them on a poll on the Patreon for my patrons to do the final pick. Now, I say 4, but see, here's the thing. January's almost over already, and I've actually already read one, so I'm going to be just technically doing 3, but it's still 4 for the year, sort of quarterly, so it'll be a bit before doing the next one, but yeah, that's kind of that, so but we'll talk. So first of all, I want to talk about the buddy reads, and I'm planning to do both a trilogy and a 5-book series, both of which are ones that I have read before are rereads, but that it's been quite some time, and that I think a lot of people on BookTube have not read, and that's kind of what we're going for. So first of all, we have the Tales of Durand by David Keck, the first book in the Eye of Heaven. This is a trilogy, and this is one where it didn't get finished for a while. It was the last book took like 10 years or something to come out. It was quite a while, and so I think a lot of people just it wasn't super well known at the time, and then some people heard about it then, but a lot of people never picked it up. And it's one that I read way pre-BookTube and have not read since, so I think it would be a good one for a reread. This is a kind of like it's a very low fantasy, medieval, like kind of realistic kind of medieval type of thing. There's not like a whole lot of magic, but we have this like regular knight basically who finds out that he's not going to get the inheritance he always thought he was, so he's becoming a knight errant and kind of traveling and just trying to find his own way in the world, and he gets involved in some sort of like dark type of, darkish magic type of thing that's involved going on, and that's kind of the setup there. We really do see some like magical things, but the thing that I think really sets us apart is our main character has no sort of magical ability at all, and so it really has that type of feel. We got lots of tournaments and that kind of thing are a big focus here as well. So it's one that I really enjoyed, and I think more people should check out. And so I'm planning to do this one in March, April, and May to do those. So have still a gap before starting the buddy reads because I'm announcing this sort of late, and then we'll go from that route. And then for the 5-book series, I'm planning to do July, August, September, October, November. I had to make sure I actually had 5 months for it to do that too, so that way it's not right at the end of the year, and also there's a gap in there in June where if my track record is like anything else, I'll probably be involved in some sort of buddy read that month. So I'm like, hey, let's do a gap. But that 5-book series is The Demon Cycle by Peter V. Brett, the first book in this, which is The Warded Man. This is another one where I feel like The Warded Man got a lot of buzz, and a lot of people really liked this but never continued the series. And it is one of those series that I'm a little curious to reread because there are a lot of things about this that I'm not normally a fan of, but I really liked this overall, and I think it sticks the landing really, really well with the overall story. This is quite on the grimdark kind of style there on the spectrum of darkness, and this takes place in a world where at night, demons kind of like rise up from the mist and from the ground, and so the entire world and the setup is you can't go any further than you can get during the day for the most part. People don't travel, or the very specific people that do, it is you have messengers and people, and they have to have a lot of precautions and this type of thing because everything is that the demons come out at night, and people have wards that are supposed to kind of keep them away and keep them at bay. And if you don't have the wards, they will get in and bad things will happen. And so that's kind of our setup here. It has, it's definitely fantasy, but there are some elements that almost have that kind of horror type of feel with it. This is a series though that it does get very dark, and I will be super upfront with it because that's the type of thing I typically don't like. There is a lot of sexual violence in this one, and that's my biggest complaint about the series is I really wish there would have been quite a lot less because I think it's overdone, and it's something you see, unfortunately, in a lot of fantasy series. But in spite of that, I think it's a strong series. But I do want to give that warning because this is pretty dark. There's a lot of that kind of thing in it. So if that's not for you, then you may not want to check it out. I do have a full series spotlight where I talk more in depth about the series if you do want to find out more about it, though. So definitely check that out. But it's a really strong series. We follow a lot of different characters as they're living in this world and kind of see them broken down and then rebuilt. And we're kind of seeing the legends arise in the current day, that type of thing. So a lot of good with the series as well. But those are the 2 buddy reads that I am planning here. I waffled way too long on what buddy reads that I wanted to do, and so that's why we're only just announcing them. But there it is. Those are the ones I'm announcing. So if you want to join, definitely let me know if you're interested in the comments. But also, I'll make sure I'll have channels in the Discord. As always, the Discord will be linked in the description if you do want to join and chat about those books as going through that. So there's those. So then talking classics, and this kind of did start because I was reading this copy. I have Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. I have just actually finished this. This is an old 80s Folio Society edition that I just randomly came across in an antique store, I think, and had picked up. And I'd never read this before, and so I won't go in too much because I have a review that's going to be coming out on this pretty soon. But this kind of also was just me trying because I really do want to get 2 more classics. So I thought what would be fun to do is we will go ahead and take a look, and I will talk through all of the different classics that I have, and like I said, that you could vote. So this was the one I read in January. So you still have the rest of the quarter if you want to jump in, read this one, talk about it. I will make a channel in Discord for it as well. And then once I collect everything from the comments here, I will get that, and I'll get the polls going on Patreon, like I said, and then I will announce what we're going to be doing for the other buddy reads as well. So I'll post that Discord and on Patreon, as well as I'll probably do a YouTube post so you can see there. So make sure to watch out for it if you want to check out. But with that, let's look at everything that I have and kind of talk through. So the first big group of classics I have a bunch of them. They're called paper mill classics. They're these kind of faux leather things. And I have a bunch of these, most of them which I got on Book Outlet because they're pretty cheap. And again, I've wanted to read this for a while. So we have Robin Hood by Henry Gilbert. I think everybody knows Robin Hood. I've never actually read this, though, so I don't really know anything about what's actually going to happen. And then we have Dracula by Bram Stoker. Another one I know a lot about. I've never actually read, and I have another copy of this somewhere in my house, I think, too, in hardcover. But is another one just where it's been a really long time, and I've never actually read it, so it seems like it would be a good one as well to do. And then we have another big one, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. I don't know that I've actually read any Jules Verne. I am really embarrassingly read in classics, but again, so I have it. This one, I really quite like the cover of this one, though. It's pretty cool. So we have that as an option as well. So we also have The Arabian Nights. This is a selected and edited by Andrew Lang. So this is, I think, not the full thing, but I figure if I like this, there's lots of, I'm sure, really cool editions I can get for these as well. So we have that one. We have The Last of the Mohicans by James Fenimore Cooper. I've seen the movie of this one, another one that I haven't read as well, kind of a different type of classic. And then, of course, A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens, possibly the most famous opening line to any book ever. I've never actually read the book. And Dickens is one I'm curious on, because I know everybody makes jokes about how he was, paid by the word, basically, but still, it's looked at as a classic, so I'd be curious to give it a try. We still have quite a few more of these, actually, with just these paper mill classics, so we'll keep going. Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. Now, this one, I have definitely managed my expectations. People tell me the book is not necessarily that good, and it's more of a police procedural. Not as good as the play, but I'd still like to try it eventually, so that's still on the list as well. We have The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, which obviously this isn't all of them. This is, I think, some sort of collection, but I've never actually read any Sherlock Holmes, so that's one definitely there as well. And then I figure I'll show it, but this one's not on the list because Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I did read this last year, and I quite liked it, and it was a nice surprise. I still wonder if I had actually read that one and just forgot, because so much of it did seem sort of familiar, but also a lot of it didn't, so I don't 100% know. And then we have Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe, another one that I feel like I wonder if I read, but I don't think I actually did. There's a chance I read this one when I was a kid as well, but I don't 100% remember, so it's on the list still. And then we're almost done, I promise, with this. We have 1984 by George Orwell. And I've actually never read 1984. It's one, too, where I know this is another one it's Orwell. And I read Animal Farm, which I thought was fine. got what it was going for. I just wasn't a huge fan of it. But I've not read 1984, which I feel like is another big one that I should definitely get to eventually. And then we have The Three Musketeers. Now, this one I have read. Because I loved the Count of Monte Cristo so much, which you can see the one behind me. Oh, I actually do have a fancier version of this I'll have to grab. The Three Musketeers I am leaving on the list, specifically because I have never actually continued the series, and I have this copy of 20 Years After, which is the sequel, which is confusing because it goes 20 years after, 10 years later, and then I think Man in the Iron Mask in like that order. So you'd think it's 10, then 20, but it's not. So I have 20 Years After, which I've never actually read. I've never continued the Three Musketeers, but it's been so long since I've read Three Musketeers, I would probably want to reread it first. So that's why it still does get to count on the list. Let me grab that fancy one though. So here is the really fancy looking one here. I love this. This I also just picked up randomly in a used bookstore, but it's got this like copper inlay, which is super cool. Really, really beautiful. So really, really other nice copy of this that I love this copy as well. Which again, I have read the book and I enjoyed it, and I like the author, so that's where I have an even nicer version I got here, which is a really cool addition as well. So other kind of miscellaneous versions that I have this beautiful copy of the Decameron by Giovanni Boccaccio. Now this, somebody sent me this, and they were listing books that they were getting rid of, and I asked about this just because it's pretty, and I really like the book. I knew nothing about this whatsoever, and then I look it up, I'm like, oh, it's like, a different tales, it's Italian. I'm like, that sounds interesting. Then I later find out that apparently this is like known as like erotica in some fashions of its time, which makes me very concerned, but I have never read it, so it does remain on the list. And then a couple of other ones. I have La Morte d'Arthur, which I've also never actually read before either. Been on my list a long time. I've read all kinds of other Arthurian stuff, including I just read Sir Gawain, but I never read the actual original La Morte d'Arthur, so that is definitely on the list here as well. This nice, cool copy here. It's just the nice leather. And then I have some of the Barnes & Noble, and then other ones that aren't. Oh, I forgot about a tiny one. Candide by Voltaire, which I don't know a ton about this one either. This is something I've just had for a long, long time, but I've never actually read any Voltaire, and I've been curious too, so that one's on the list as well. And so then our Barnes & Noble editions, I have this nice copy of the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. Again, I read excerpts at least of these, I think, but I've never read like the whole thing. And so another one that I have here that definitely could go on the list. And another one here, the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. Another one of like the really famous ones, with Inferno, of course, being the most famous part of this. And I've never read any of this as well, but I have this one that's got the whole thing in it, all of the parts, which also I think would be a cool one too. And finally, because we are actually nearing the end here. I told you I have way too many. I just recently got this, The Best of Ernest Hemingway. This is a really cool looking edition here as well. And so this one I already agreed to read Buddy Read The Old Man and the Sea with somebody this year, so I'll be reading that one. But anything that happens to be in this collection, you can also vote for. Any of the ones that are in the actual collections, for the record, it's like not the whole thing. It's an individual story in them too, so keep that in mind. But otherwise, yeah, so those are all the ones. So let me know which ones that you would like me to read. If you have like a top few, or if you have a bunch, like I said, I'll get them all tabulated, and then I'll get a final poll and get those figured out. But we'll be doing those at the start of each quarter for the ones that we have left. April, July, November will be when I will be planning to get to them. But again, since it's quarterly, it's kind of whenever. So kind of more of a casual buddy read, just like, hey, if you feel like reading a classic in that quarter. So I think that'll work. But that's really it for this one, though. So make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description, as always, for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether any of these books, other books, you want to join the buddy reads. It's a lot of fun, and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.